Those fools, those arrogant, blind fools, I still remember muttering those words under my breath as I watched the Galactic Council members file into the emergency session. Their elaborate robes swished against the polished obsidian floors, their multiple appendages gesturing in that universal sign of political grandstanding. If I close my eyes now, I can still see the golden light from our binary sun streaming through the crystal dome above, casting dancing shadows across their concerned faces. My name is Admiral Kexvaler of the Marari Defense Force, and I was there the day everything changed, the day the humans finally showed the galaxy exactly what they were capable of. Order, order. The Council High Counselor Thex Raven's voice boomed across the chamber, his crystalline voice amplification implants making the very air vibrate. We have received disturbing reports from the Outer Rim. The human response to the Drawn incursion has been unprecedented. A murmur rippled through the assembled representatives. I caught snippets of their conversations. Primitive species, barely achieved FTL, outdated fusion technology. Oh, how wrong they were, how wrong we all were. I shifted in my seat, my ceremonial armor clicking against the ancient wood. The humans had warned us, by the Great Void, they had warned us repeatedly, but we, in our infinite wisdom, had dismissed them as paranoid, primitive, barely worth our attention. Admiral Valer, Thex Raven's voice cut through my thoughts, you've had the most direct contact with the humans. Please share your observations with the Council. I rose slowly, my 4 hearts beating in an irregular rhythm. The weight of the moment pressed down on my shoulders like a neutron star. Honorable Council members, I began, trying to keep the sarcasm from my voice. Perhaps we should consider that our initial assessment of human capabilities was incomplete. Incomplete? Trade Minister Pax Vora scoffed, her bioluminescent patches flashing in amusement. They still use combustion engines in some of their vehicles. Their ships are practically held together with adhesive strips and hope, and yet. They just decimated the entire Drawn 7th Fleet, I countered, cutting her off. Not damaged, not defeated, decimated. 17 capital ships, gone in less than 6 standard minutes. The chamber erupted in chaos. Impossible, someone shouted. Their weapon systems are centuries behind the Drawn standard. I activated my neural interface, projecting the battle footage above the council chamber. The holographic display showed the Drawn ships, proud and terrible in their blood-red hulls, advancing on the human colony world of New Providence. Then came the flash, not of weapons fire or nuclear detonation, but something else, something that made reality itself seem to hiccup. When the light faded, the Drawn ships were simply wrong, twisted as if someone had taken the laws of physics and turned them inside out like an old garment. What did they do? Thex Raven whispered, his usual political bluster forgotten. That honored council member, I said, unable to keep a grim smile from my face, is what happens when you corner a species that spent most of its history preparing for wars that never came. A species that looked at the most fundamental laws of the universe and decided they were more like guidelines. The silence in the chamber was deafening. I could see it in their eyes, the dawning realization that we had catastrophically underestimated our newest galactic neighbors. The humans hadn't needed to catch up to technology. They'd simply been playing nice, using outdated systems to avoid drawing attention while they worked on something far more sophisticated. We need to call an immediate vote on the human situation, Thex Raven declared, his voice shaking slightly. All in favor, I interrupted, with all due respect. High Counselor, I don't think we'll be the ones making that decision anymore. As if to punctuate my point, every communication device in the chamber chirped simultaneously. A message from Earth's diplomatic corps had arrived, requesting an audience. Not asking, not pleading as they had before, but requesting. And at that moment, looking at my fellow council members' faces, I knew that everything was about to change. The humans were done being underestimated, done being dismissed, done being treated like children playing with toys. The galaxy's first contact was about to learn why humans had survived on their death world for so long, why their entertainment was filled with tales of war and conflict, why they had never stopped preparing for the worst, even in times of peace. And I, Admiral Kexvaler, would have a front row seat to the show. The first time I met a human, I nearly laughed. Not that they could tell. Marari laughter involves complex bioluminescent patterns rather than sound. But still, the urge was there. Our Trade Federation ships had detected their primitive radio signals years before we made contact, and the Marari Council had designated Earth as a Category 3 developing world, barely worth monitoring. How quickly that assessment would prove embarrassingly wrong. Admiral Voller, your report on the initial contact, Trade Minister Pax Vora had asked during that first briefing, her tentacles curled in what I now recognize as misplaced superiority. They responded to our arrival with remarkable composure, I had replied, remembering the calm faces of the human leadership. Too calm, in retrospect. Their military stood down when we demonstrated peaceful intentions, and their governments unified remarkably quickly to establish diplomatic relations. What I hadn't mentioned then was how their soldiers' hands never strayed far from their weapons, how their satellites had tracked our ships with a precision that should have been impossible for their level of technology, how their cities had defensive systems that our scans couldn't quite penetrate. Please welcome Maya Rodriguez, Earth's appointed diplomatic representative. The announcement had echoed through our halls 3 cycles later. She walked into the chamber like she owned it, a small bipedal figure in a simple blue suit that somehow commanded more attention than all our ornate robes combined. "Thank you for having me," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Earth is eager to join the galactic community. We have so much to learn from you all." "Learn from us, huh?" I should have caught the subtle mock in her tone. "Their technology is charmingly obsolete," Science Minister Lex Kavari declared after reviewing their public databases. "They still rely on silicon-based computing, chemical propulsion, and physical armor plating." I had seen something different during my inspection tours, little things, inconsistencies, like how their manufacturing centers produced far more raw materials than their visible technology could account for, or how their power consumption patterns made absolutely no sense for their declared technological level. "They're hiding something," I had reported to the council. "Their public technology is a facade." Nonsense. Trade Minister Vora had dismissed my concerns with a wave of her primary appendage. "They're simply an emerging species, primitive but trainable. We'll guide them as we have guided others." Meanwhile, Maya Rodriguez attended every council session, taking notes with an archaic stylus on paper. How quaint the other diplomats would whisper, none of them noticing how her eyes missed nothing, how her questions always seemed to probe our weaknesses while revealing nothing of substance about Earth's capabilities. "You know, Admiral," she said to me one day as we watched ships dock at the station, "humans have a saying, never judge a book by its cover." "An interesting metaphor," I replied, studying her carefully. "And what cover are we judging incorrectly, Representative Rodriguez?" She smiled that not quite sincere smile again. "Oh, I'm sure I don't know what you mean. We're just simple humans, after all, still figuring out how to play with the big kids in the galaxy." Later that cycle, I discovered that 3 of our most secure databases had been accessed during that conversation. The trace signatures were unlike anything our security systems had ever encountered. When I confronted Maya about it, she just raised an eyebrow. "That sounds concerning, Admiral. Perhaps your systems need an upgrade. We'd be happy to learn from your superior technology about how to prevent such breaches." The sarcasm was so thick you could have cut it with a plasma blade. Looking back now, I realized she wasn't just gathering intelligence. She was letting us know they could penetrate our defenses at will, a warning we were too arrogant to heed. We thought we were studying them. All along, they were studying us, measuring us, preparing. Humans, I would learn, have another saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. We never quite figured out which category they had placed us in until it was too late. The drone attack on New Providence shouldn't have surprised anyone. The signs were there: increased military movements, suspicious trading patterns, unusual diplomatic posturing, but the Council, in its infinite wisdom, chose to ignore them all. I remember the emergency broadcast cutting through all channels. The drawn warships appeared without warning above the human colony world of New Providence, population 8 million, a peaceful settlement of farmers, scientists, and families. "This is an internal matter," Commander Larkson of the Drawn Fleet announced, his scaled face filling our view screens. "The humans have violated our territorial claims. We are merely protecting our interests." Territorial claims on a system that had never been drawn, that they had never even visited before humans settled it. The excuse was so paper-thin it was transparent. "The Council must intervene," I argued, standing before the emergency session. "The Drawn are clearly the aggressors. This violation of sovereignty cannot stand." High Counselor Thex Raven shook his head, the light glinting off his ceremonial headpiece. "We cannot interfere in what is technically a border dispute. The Galactic Council must maintain its neutrality." Neutrality? Maya Rodriguez's voice cut through the chamber like a laser. She stood in the diplomatic section, no longer bothering with her notepad, no longer playing the role of the humble representative. "Is that what you call it when you watch a stronger power prey on those you consider weak?" Representative Rodriguez, Trade Minister Vora said soothingly, "Surely you understand the complex diplomatic considerations." "Oh, I understand perfectly," Maya interrupted, the temperature in the room seeming to drop several degrees. "I understand that you think we're defenseless, that we need your protection, your guidance, your permission to defend our own people." She pulled out a small communication device, noticeably not one of our approved diplomatic models. "General Chin, are we ready?" A holographic figure appeared, a human woman in a military uniform I'd never seen before, not the standard Earth Defense Force gear they'd shown us, but something else entirely. "All systems are go," Representative General Andrea Chin reported, "just waiting for your word." "Now, see here," Commander Larkson blustered from his own holographic projection, "any military response will be considered an act of war against the Drawn Imperium." Maya's laugh was cold enough to freeze plasma. "An act of war? Like attacking our colony wasn't an act of war?" She turned to address the council. "We came to you first, out of courtesy, out of respect for galactic protocols. That courtesy has been rejected. The humans cannot hope to stand against the Drawn Fleet," Science Minister Kavari protested. "Their ships are decades behind Drawn technology." "Oh, you mean the ones we let you see?" Maya's smile was predatory. "I always said you were more perceptive than your colleagues, Admiral Voller," she nodded to me, "though even you don't know the half of it." She turned back to General Chen's hologram. "You have full authorization. Commence Operation Mask Off." As she turned to leave, I called out, "Representative Rodriguez, was any of it real? The primitive technology, the careful diplomatic approaches, the requests for guidance." She paused at the door. "The diplomacy was real, Admiral. We genuinely hope to join the galactic community as equals. But humans learned long ago, hope for peace, prepare for war. And we've had a very, very long time to prepare." The chamber erupted into chaos as she left, Commander Larkson barking orders to his fleet, Trade Minister Vora trying to establish emergency protocols, Science Minister Kavari demanding access to human technological databases that no longer seemed to exist. Through it all, I watched the tactical display, showing the Drawn Fleet approaching New Providence, 17 capital ships against a colony world defended by what we thought were outdated human vessels. "Admiral," my tactical officer called out, his voice shaking, "something's happening to our sensor readings. The human ships, they're changing." I looked at the display and felt my bioluminescence pattern shift to show pure shock. The seemingly primitive human vessels were transforming, their hulls flowing like liquid metal, revealing configurations our science had deemed impossible. And in that moment, as panicked reports began flooding in from the Ashian fleet, I remembered something else Maya Rodriguez had said months ago, during what I thought was a casual conversation about human history. "You know what the most dangerous thing in the universe is, Admiral? Not the strongest creature or the most advanced weapon. It's an intelligent species that evolved on a death world, survived countless near extinctions, and spent its entire history preparing for threats that never came, until now." The Council observation deck fell silent as we watched humanity unveil centuries of hidden technological advancement in a matter of minutes. The primitive hulls of their ships peeled away like shed skin, revealing something that defied our understanding of physics itself. What are we seeing? Science Minister Kavari whispered, his bioluminescence pattern showing pure terror. The answer came from General Chen's tactical broadcast, transmitted across all frequencies. No attempts to hide it now, no more pretending. Initiating quantum field manipulation. Activating Nexus Defense Network. All systems synced to Athena Prime. The human ships changed, their whole material shifting like liquid metal. But it wasn't a mechanical transformation, they were manipulating the fundamental forces holding matter together. Reality itself bent around their vessels, as if the laws of physics were mere suggestions. Impossible, Commander Larksen's voice crackled through the command channel. Our scans showed no signs of such technology. Of course they didn't, Maya Rodriguez's voice responded smoothly. She had reappeared on our command deck, now wearing a sleek black uniform I'd never seen before. Your scans were looking for what you expected to find: primitive fusion drives, chemical propulsion, standard deflector shields. She gestured at the tactical display, where the human ships were now surrounded by a strange shimmering field that our sensors couldn't even classify. You never thought to look for quantum manipulation because you assumed it was impossible. You never detected our AI network because Athena operates on principles your science hasn't even theorized yet. I watched as one of the drawn cruisers fired its main weapons battery. The energy beams approached the nearest human vessel and simply ceased to exist. Nanite defense grid functioning at optimal levels, General Chin reported. Athena confirms all systems nominal. Permission to demonstrate our actual capabilities. Maya nodded. Proceed. What happened next would be seared into my memory until the day I joined the void. The space around the human ships rippled like someone had dropped a stone into a pond, but the pond was the fabric of space-time itself. The nanites, though invisible to our sensors, swarmed across the hull of the human flagship, not as mechanical devices like our cybernetic systems, but something far more advanced. Quantum-scale machines that could reorganize matter at the subatomic level. Athena, Maya spoke clearly, execute Defense Protocol Omega. A new voice filled the command deck, smooth, artificial, yet undeniably alive. Acknowledge, Director Rodriguez. Quantum fields aligned. Preparing space-time distortion grid. The ripples spreading from the human ships intensified. I watched in awe as the very structure of space began to warp and twist around the drawn fleet. What you're seeing, Maya explained, almost casually, is what happens when you combine true artificial intelligence with quantum manipulation technology. Athena doesn't just control our ships, she rewrites reality in real time to optimize our defense systems. On the tactical display, the drawn ships began to distort, not from weapons fire or conventional attacks, but from the space around them being selectively altered at the quantum level. The nanites generate localized quantum fields, Maya continued. Athena coordinates them through subspace channels your sensors can't detect, and the result. She gestured at the screen, where the first drawn ship was now experiencing the effects of having the fundamental forces holding it together selectively modified. Its hull didn't break or explode, it simply ceased to maintain a coherent form in our dimension. We spent centuries preparing for threats from beyond our world. Maya's voice carried an edge of pride and warning. While you saw us playing with chemical rockets and radio waves, we were perfecting technology that your sciences considered theoretical. This violates all known laws of physics. Commander Larksen's voice crackled through, now tinged with panic. No, Maya corrected him, it violates all laws of physics known to you. Humans have a saying, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. We just decided to skip the part where we showed you our advancements step by step. The quantum ripples had reached the entire drawn fleet now. Ships that had seemed so powerful, so advanced just moments ago, were being unmade by forces they couldn't even detect, let alone defend against. Athena, General Chen's hologram announced, commence full spectrum analysis of drawn shield harmonics. Calculate optimal phase variance for quantum displacement. Analysis complete, the AI responded instantly. Adjusting nanite swarm configuration. Quantum fields remodulated. I watched as the remaining drawn ships tried to fire their weapons, engage their drives, anything to escape. But you can't escape when space itself is being rewritten around you. You know what your biggest mistake was? Maya asked the stunned council members. Not that you underestimated our technology, not that you ignored our warnings. Your biggest mistake was assuming that just because we didn't show you our teeth, we didn't have any. The tactical display showed the last drawn ship twisting in ways that shouldn't be possible, as localized quantum fields pulled it in multiple dimensional directions simultaneously. Demonstration complete, Athena announced. All hostile vessels have been phase-shifted out of normal spacetime. Quantum field stabilization in progress. Where the mighty drawn fleet had been, there was now only empty space and rapidly fading ripples in reality itself. No debris, no explosions, they hadn't been destroyed, they had been removed from our universe with surgical precision. Maya turned to address the council directly. Now then, shall we discuss the terms of our continued participation in the galactic community, as equals this time? The silence that followed was the sound of an entire galaxy realizing that everything they thought they knew about humanity had been wrong, catastrophically, fundamentally wrong. And I, Admiral Kex Faller, couldn't help but smile, because sometimes the best lessons are the ones that hurt the most to learn. Commander Larkson made his final mistake when he ordered the drawn reserve fleet to engage. Watching from the Council's tactical center, I saw his reinforcements emerge from hyperspace, 43 capital ships, including the dreaded Worldbreaker-class dreadnoughts. Surrender now, Sin, he broadcast, his scaled face twisted with rage. No civilization can stand against the combined might of two drawn battle fleets. General Andrea Chen's response was a brief chuckle. You still think this is about military might? Athena, battle mode authorized. Show them what we can really do. The human ships, already transformed from their primitive disguises, began to move in ways that violated every principle of space combat we thought we knew. They didn't maintain formation, they flowed like mercury droplets in zero gravity, each vessel simultaneously acting independently and as part of a greater whole. Multiple quantum apertures detected, my tactical officer reported, his voice cracking. The humans there. Creating localized space-time distortions around each drawn vessel, Maya Rodriguez corrected, still standing calmly on our command deck. Not just around them. Athena doesn't just control space, Admiral. She writes new rules for it. I watched as the first drawn dreadnought fired its main gun, a weapon capable of cracking planets. The energy beam lanced out towards the nearest human vessel, and then curved, not deflected, not absorbed, but literally bent in space, as if reality itself had decided to reroute it. Quantum field manipulation complete, Athena announced. Initiating protocol Ouroboros. The redirected energy beam twisted through impossible angles, passing through the space occupied by 6 different drawn ships. Physics screamed as the beam intersected with itself, creating cascade reactions that our sensors couldn't even process. What you fail to understand, General Chen's hologram explained, is that we never needed bigger guns. We just needed to understand space itself better than you do. The human ships danced through the chaos, their nanite clouds extending like ethereal wings. Where drawn weapons fire should have hit, space simply refused to transmit the energy. Where drawn shields should have held, quantum fields phased matter out of normal spacetime. They're not even fighting back, Science Minister Kavari whispered, his composure completely shattered. They're just changing the rules of the battle. Target their command ships, Senro, our tactical officer, ordered, his voice tinged with desperation. Launch all fighters, fire everything. The drawn fleet responded with a fury that would have annihilated any conventional enemy, energy weapons, mass drivers, temporal disruptors. They unleashed their full arsenal, but it was all for naught. Athena demonstrates strategy beta 7, Maya announced, her voice carrying across all frequencies. The space between the fleets. The space between the warring vessels folded, there's no other word for it, like a piece of paper being creased. Reality bent along lines that shouldn't exist, and the entire drawn barrage disappeared into the fold, only to emerge behind their own fleet. You see, Maya continued, as we were all advancing our existing technology, humanity took a different approach. We asked ourselves, Why play the game when you can change its fundamental rules? The human ships began to split and merge, their nanite clouds creating impossible geometries. One vessel would become three, then merge back into one in a different location. Space itself seemed to ripple and dance at their command. Athena, General Chun ordered, execute checkmate protocol. Acknowledged, the AI responded. Quantum manifold engaged. Preparing dimensional inversion cascade. The next few moments defied description. The human ships released what looked like tendrils of pure mathematics into space. Where they touched drawn vessels, reality redistributed itself. Ships didn't explode. They simply ceased to exist in our dimension, translated into some other state of being we couldn't comprehend. No! Senro screamed. This is impossible. You can't just ignore the laws of physics. Laws of physics? Maya laughed. Commander, those aren't laws. They're observations of how the universe usually behaves. Humanity just figured out how to file for exceptions. The remaining drawn ships tried to retreat, but Athena had predicted that too. The quantum fields had already reshaped local spacetime, their hyperdrives engaged, but the energy was instantly redirected, trapping them in a closed temporal loop. Listen carefully, drawn fleet, General Chun broadcast to the trapped vessels. What you're experiencing isn't war as you know it. This is humanity showing you what happens when a species spends its entire history preparing for extinction-level threats. One by one, the drawn ships winked out of existence, not destroyed, but translated, moved, hidden away in pocket dimensions that Athena had created specifically for this purpose. The difference between us, Maya added, her voice carrying across all frequencies, is that you built weapons to win battles. We built technology to rewrite the rules of war itself. The last drawn dreadnought, their flagship, hung suspended in space, surrounded by 42 quantum apertures that showed brief glimpses of its fleet, scattered across dimensions that had never existed before humanity decided they should. Do you yield, Commander Sin? General Chin asked calmly. The drawn commander's response was to trigger his ship's self-destruct sequence, a futile gesture. Athena simply removed the concept of explosive chain reactions from that region of space. Athena, Maya said aside, please add the commander's vessel to the collection. Standard containment protocols. The massive dreadnought folded in on itself, not so much vanishing as being edited out of our reality. In the space of 15 minutes, without firing a single conventional weapon, humanity had removed 2 drawn battle fleets from existence. Let this serve as a demonstration, Maya announced to the stunned council. Humanity doesn't want war. We never did. But we spent thousands of years preparing for it, imagining threats far worse than anything you could bring to bear. She turned to leave the command deck, then paused. Oh, and Commander Sun? Your ships and crews are unharmed, just temporarily stored in pocket dimensions. Once your leadership comes to the negotiating table, we'll be happy to return them, though I suspect they'll have some interesting perspectives on challenging humanity after experiencing non-existence. As the human ships reverted to their disguised forms and prepared to return to their colony, I couldn't help but ask, was any of this necessary? Couldn't you have shown us your true capabilities from the start? Maya's smile was almost sympathetic. Admiral, if we had shown you what we could really do, would you have believed it? Sometimes the only way to make people understand power is to let them think they have it first. The Galactic Council chambers feel different now. The grandiose speeches are shorter, the posturing less dramatic. Amazing how quickly attitudes change when you realize you're not at the top of the technological food chain anymore. The human delegation requests permission to address the council. The announcement echoes through the hall. Nobody misses how the word permission carries a hint of sarcasm these days. Maya Rodriguez strides in, wearing that same simple blue suit from our first meeting. The council members straighten in their seats. Gone are the dismissive glances and condescending murmurs. Now, they watch her every move like prey animals tracking a predator. Stop looking so nervous, she says with that characteristic smile. If we wanted to conquer the galaxy, we'd have done it already. Watching her address the council, I reflect on how completely she played us all. The humble diplomat, the eager student of galactic civilization, all a carefully crafted performance, though perhaps not entirely an act. Humans, I've learned, are genuinely curious about other species. They just don't let that curiosity override their caution. The terms are simple, Maya continues. Earth and its colonies will remain independent. We'll share some of our technology gradually, and only the non-military applications. In return, we expect certain changes to how the Council operates. High Counselor Thex Raven, who once dismissed humans as primitive upstarts, now nods eagerly. Of course, Representative Rodriguez. The Council is very interested in human perspectives on galactic governance. I catch Maya's eye and we share a knowing look. 3 cycles ago, she had to beg for 5 minutes of the Council's time. Now, they hang on her every word. The Drawn returned to normal space 2 days after the battle, minus their weapons, and with some very interesting stories to tell. Turns out experiencing non-existence gives one a new perspective on diplomatic relations. They signed a peace treaty within hours of their return. Furthermore, Maya continues, Earth will be establishing a new division of peacekeepers, not to control, but to protect. No more standing idle while stronger powers prey on developing worlds. Trade Minister Vora, who once laughed at human technology, raises a tentacle. Will these peacekeepers be equipped with your advanced capabilities? They won't need to be, Maya responds. The mere possibility should be deterrent enough. Ask the Drawn if you doubt that. I've seen the reports from the frontier worlds, stories spreading about human ships that can bend reality, about Athena, the AI that rewrites physics on a whim, about weapons that don't destroy you, but simply make you stop existing until you learn to behave. Some say the stories are exaggerated. Having witnessed their power firsthand, I suspect they're understated. Admiral Voller, Maya calls out, pulling me from my thoughts. The human delegation requests your expertise in establishing the new peacekeeping protocols. I rise from my seat, noting how the other council members eye me with a mixture of envy and relief. They know why I was chosen. I was the only one who saw through the mask, even if I didn't grasp the full scope of what lay beneath it. There's an old human saying, Maya tells me later, as we walk through the council's gardens, si vis pacem, para bellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. Your species took that quite seriously. I don't respond. I don't need to. Humans, it seems, are masters of understatement. You know what it's like, she continues, to evolve on a world that constantly tries to kill you, to develop intelligence while surrounded by predators, to achieve civilization despite natural disasters, plagues, and your own violent impulses? No, I want to say. My species evolved on a peaceful world with few natural predators. The realization hits me like a neutron star. The humans have been shaped by their environment in ways we can scarcely imagine, and they've emerged stronger for it, ready to take their place as equals in the galactic community on their own terms. As we part ways, I can't help but feel a twinge of envy. The galaxy has been forever changed by this encounter, and I have a front row seat to witness it. But for the first time in my life, I'm not sure I'm prepared for what's to come.